My name is Julia Vale, 32 years old. The day begins the way my best work always does, with light. It pours across the hardwood like a slow river, collecting on stacks of glossy prints that ring me on the floor. Vermont, in late October, a bride in a cream gown, a maple canopy set ablaze. I'm squinting at the contact sheets, tracing a fingertip from frame to frame, hunting for the precise edge where tenderness becomes undeniable. There is one shot I can't stop returning to. The couple beneath the trees, fingers hovering so close you can hear the air between them. I have a theory that every wedding has one image that holds the whole day. If you find it, the rest becomes inevitable. My phone lights with a familiar name, Mom. The screen's reflection cuts across the maple fire and washes it cold. I don't answer immediately. Habit. I rotate a print, fix a crooked stack, breathe through the old instinct to make my voice smaller. Then I pick up. Hi, Mom. Julia. Margaret's voice arrives, clipped, crisp, a paper cut with syllables. We need to talk about Lily's wedding. I'm already smiling, already imagining what Miami light might do to a silk veil over water. Perfect timing. I was going to call your travel dates photography. I have ideas. You'll ruin your sister's wedding, she says, and the sentence lands with the calm certainty of a diagnosis. Don't come. The cup slips. Ceramic explodes into bright little moons, and a brown river leaps over the prints. For half a second, I watch coffee map itself across someone else's joy and think, absurdly, about stain-lifting techniques. Then sound returns. The clatter, the gasp, my own voice from very far away. What? Lily needs all the attention. Margaret doesn't raise her voice, she wields it. Your presence would be distracting. I'm her only sister. My throat tries to close and I make it open. I've photographed 180 weddings. If anything, I could help. This is me helping. Her tone softens into pity, which is somehow worse than scorn. You've always needed to be the center of things. Let your sister have her moment. Think of your absence as a gift. There's the word, gift. It scuffs the same old groove inside me, a trench worn since childhood. I press my palm to the desk to steady the room. Let me talk to Lily. She agrees completely. A pause meant to give me time to understand the new order. This was partly her idea. Maybe it's a lie. Maybe it isn't. Both options ache. I end the call before I hear myself beg. Coffee has curled the edges of autumn, turning the maple canopy to a bruise. I step around the shards and dial my father. He answers on the second ring. Julia, everything okay? Mom just told me I'm not invited to Lily's wedding. Silence opens like an elevator shaft. When he speaks, the words are already falling. It's for the best, kiddo. There's that gentle cough of apology he always uses before compliance. When I was 12 and I won a regional photography prize, he made that sound and asked if we could keep the trophy in my closet so Lily wouldn't feel bad about losing her science fair. Back then, I agreed. Back then, I called that love. You don't mean that, I say quietly. Your absence, he says, careful, is a gift to your sister. Be selfless for once. Something in me goes very still, like the air before a storm. I won't beg for an invitation to my own sister's wedding. Don't be dramatic, Margaret's voice snips in. They must be on speaker. Think about someone besides yourself for once. For once, I repeat, and my voice is steady enough to surprise me. The floor around me is a constellation of ceramic. The photo's a wet continent. I fetch towels. I mop the coffee from strangers' vows and think about how many times I have made myself less. How often I've quieted triumphs, folded joy down to fit someone else's frame. Memory arrives not as a montage, but as evidence. A hand slides a drawing off the refrigerator, mine, and puts up a crooked stick figure with a silver star sticker, hers. Thanksgiving. Me at the kids' table, because Lily needs to practice her speech with the adults. A family portrait where I'm half a step behind, my face a little out of focus because my mother told me to stand back. The words that built the house, be good, be quiet, be small. It's almost funny that I became a wedding photographer. I learned early how framing tells the story, how you can move one person 2 inches to the left and cut them out without anyone noticing until the album arrives. The front door opens. Julia? Ethan's voice is wind after fever. Camera bag drops to the entry bench. He stops in the doorway, sees the wreckage, and crosses the room like a person careful not to wake a sleeping child. What happened? I tell him. The uninvitation, the reasons, the old choreography of shrinking. The words stumble at first, then pour. He kneels, nudging glass to the side with the spine of a magazine, and hands me a dry corner of towel. They've done this your entire life, he says, but not like an accusation, like he's pointing out a pattern of light I've been too close to see. He stacks the salvageable prints face down, ink safe from smear. It's not right. I focus on my hands, on the tensile strength of paper born to hold joy. They think my staying away is generous. He looks at the maple shot, the almost touching fingers. What if generosity isn't subtracting yourself, he asks softly, but refusing to disappear? I think about the image I've been chasing since I first picked up a camera, a golden hour frame that holds a person exactly as they are, between breath and certainty. I've captured it for strangers, for cover stories, in a Napa vineyard and a lakeside barn, but never for my own life. My mother's voice swims up. You'll ruin it, you always do. Over it, Ethan's. Refuse to disappear. Across the room, my phone lights again. It glows with a new message from Mom. A repost of Lily and her fiancé beneath a cascade of white roses captioned, "Sometimes the kindest thing is to step back and let others shine. No tag, no name. It doesn't matter. I'm fluent in subtext." I turn the screen face down. "Tell me something good," I say, and Ethan hears what I mean. "Hand me one small stone that's mine to hold." He flips open his laptop and, with a couple of keystrokes, fills the screen with sea. A stone terrace rises from the blue, vines draped like handwriting over old walls. The light is honey thick, the horizon a line you could balance vows on. "Giovanni's family villa," he says. "Remember the Milan dock? He rents it for small ceremonies." I swallow. The sea glints like a dare. "It's beautiful." "It is," he says. "We could go for a week, or..." He watches me too closely, gently. "We could stop asking permission to exist, Julia." I laugh once, because my body doesn't know what else to do with that sentence. Then I let the idea sit in the room. The terrace, the vines, the light I've spent years chasing. A day made in our own image, not a performance graded by my mother's rubric. It sounds like fiction. It feels like a password. Something in me uncoils, not a battle cry, not yet. Just this, a refusal to shrink. I pick up my phone, not to scroll, to call. Margaret answers on the third ring. "Julia?" "Hi, Mom." My voice is level. "I wanted to let you know that Ethan and I are getting married." Silence, then, "What?" "We've been together 4 years. The timing feels right. We found a place in Amalfi. It'll be small, 25 guests, very intimate. You cannot plan a wedding while Lily is planning hers." The calm returns to her words, but now it carries heat. "Do you have any idea how stressed she is? This will upset her terribly." "I'm not asking permission," I say. I can almost see the terrace and the blank between us. "I'm sharing news." "This is exactly what I mean," she snaps. "First you make a fuss about not being invited. Now you're..." "Mom," I say, and I say it with a steadiness that surprises both of us. "This isn't about Lily. It's about my life." "Richard!" she calls, voice turning away from me. "Your daughter is trying to upstage her sister's wedding." I end the call before he arrives on speaker. The kitchen goes quiet except for the soft tap-tap of the sink dripping. I rest my forehead against the cabinet and wait for the old rush. Guilt, panic, the need to fix. It doesn't come. Something else arrives instead. Quieter, sturdier. Like standing up and realizing the ceiling is higher than you were told. Ethan lifts the Vermont shot by 2 fingertips, careful of the coffee. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking," I say, "that I've been living by their lighting diagram, angled away from myself so someone else can feel brighter." "And now?" "Now I want golden hour," I say. "For me." He smiles, and the line of his mouth looks like a horizon I might learn by heart. We spend the next hour blotting prints and sweeping glass into a paper bag. The mess becomes manageable. The story, less so, but I can feel its spine. When we're done, I sit cross-legged again and pull a fresh notebook from the drawer I save for clean starts. On the first page, I write 3 things. Stop shrinking. Tell the truth about the light. Refuse to disappear. I close the notebook. In the reflection of the dark laptop screen, my face is clear, centered, correctly exposed. "Julia," Ethan says from the doorway, camera bag on his shoulder again, voice soft with a question that doesn't require an answer. "Ready?" I look at the ruined mug in the trash, at the prints we saved, at the square of sun inching across the floor like a promise. Yes, I say, I am. Somewhere, far away, a mother I love is already building a new narrative. Here, in my small room of light and paper, I build a different one. It begins with a sentence I've never allowed myself to claim out loud, because claiming it would mean changing everything. I say it anyway. I will not beg again. The next morning, sunlight feels different. It doesn't warm the apartment the way it used to. It interrogates it. Every surface looks sharper, every reflection more revealing. Ethan's already left for a shoot. The quiet he leaves behind is heavy, but necessary. I spread my salvaged prints across the table like tarot cards, trying to read the future in stranger's joy. But the past keeps interrupting. On the corner of the table sits my parents' Christmas card from last year. Lily and her fiancé, Bradley, stand center frame. My parents flank them, proud smiles, perfect posture. I'm nowhere in it. I remember the night that photo was taken, how Mom said, "Oh, it's just a quick family picture, Julia. You don't have to get dressed up." I stayed in the kitchen, sipping lukewarm cider, listening to laughter rise and fall from the living room like waves I was never meant to reach. Now the picture feels prophetic. My phone buzzes. Amanda, my childhood friend, one of the few bridges between me and Lily, has sent a voice message. "Julia, you're going to want to sit down. Lily's wedding budget just doubled. And Bradley told people he didn't want you there because you steal attention. I thought you should hear it from me before it spreads." The world goes silent for half a breath. Then everything inside me starts to hum, like static before a lightning strike. "He's never even met me," I whisper to the empty room. I scroll through social media before I can stop myself. There it is, an engagement post, an $800,000 wedding hashtag, and a caption dripping in curated grace. "Can't wait to celebrate with everyone who matters most." Everyone, except me. I toss the phone aside and head to the closet. Somewhere behind boxes of tripods and camera gear sits a plastic bin labeled Family Photos. It's heavier than I remember. I drag it out, drop to the floor, and pry off the lid. Inside, decades of proof. A toddler birthday. Lily in front of the cake, me blurred behind a balloon string. A Thanksgiving table. Lily in Dad's lap, me cropped by the curtain. A high school graduation. Lily tossing her cap midair, me cut off at the shoulder. Every photo has the same choreography. Her center stage, me in the margins. I run a finger along the glossy edge of one picture until it cuts. A small sting, but enough to feel real. I stack them chronologically, like evidence for a trial I didn't know I'd been preparing for. The door creaks. Ethan returns, holding 2 coffees and a paper bag. "Truce offering," he says softly. "Cinnamon bagels." He pauses when he sees the floor, a mosaic of photographs and ghosts. "Evidence he asks. "Patterns," I correct. "It's all there, look." He crouches beside me, picking up one photo, then another. His brow furrows. "They always put you behind her." "Always," I echo. He sets the photos down and opens his laptop. "I want you to hear something." He types for a moment, then begins to read from a client testimonial. "Julia didn't just take pictures. She captured us as we are, messy, real, alive. I still cry looking at our album." He reads another. "She found the one moment that felt like truth." Another. "Her photos made us see each other again." Ethan looks up. "These people see you, Julia. Your family doesn't." I stare at the picture in my lap. Me at 16, holding my first DSLR, grinning too wide. I remember the moment perfectly. The pride, the electricity. The way Mom's face tightened when Lily's math grade came in lower that same day. "She told me to smile smaller," I say quietly. Ethan frowns. "Why?" "So Lily wouldn't feel bad." He sits back, the words sinking in. "You've been conditioned to dim yourself." I almost laugh. Conditioned. Like a photo bath. He reaches for my hand, grounding me. "You can change the exposure." I meet his eyes, and something unspoken passes between us. A current of shared defiance. The laptop screen dims, reflecting our faces side by side. I don't look away. That evening, I call my father again. He answers tentative. "Julia, I just wanted to ask, did you really think not inviting me was right?" A sigh. "Your mother thought it was best." "I didn't ask Mom. I asked you." He hesitates. "It's complicated. You and your sister have different strengths. You've always been intense." "Intense?" "You feel things too deeply. It makes other people uncomfortable." "Other people," I repeat. "You mean Mom?" "Julia!" "Dad!" I interrupt, my voice shaking but steady. Do you know what it feels like to be treated as a threat in your own family? He doesn't answer. The silence tells the truth. I hang up before tears can make me small again. Later that night, Amanda calls. Lily posted a new caption. Sometimes the kindest thing is to step back and let others shine. I groan. Of course she did. She's parroting your mom, Amanda says. You know that, right? Yeah. I also think she's scared of her. That makes me pause. What do you mean? She does whatever your mom wants, even when she hates it. I've seen her break down after those phone calls. The idea hits me sideways. I'd spent my whole life seeing Lily as the golden child, not the prisoner. After the call, I returned to the floor of photos. This time I noticed something new. In the early pictures, Lily's smile looks effortless. But as the years pass, it stiffens. By college, it's all teeth and tension. For the first time, I feel something unexpected. Pity. The next morning, Ethan finds me printing new photos. Not of weddings, but of myself. Childhood snapshots scanned and enlarged. I pin them on the corkboard beside my work. Little me, paint-stained fingers, hopeful eyes. I used to think if I achieved enough, they'd be proud, I tell him. But the deal was never about pride, it was about control. He leans against the doorway, studying the wall. So what are you going to do with all this? I turn, feeling something stir that isn't grief this time, it's clarity. I'm going to build a new frame. He smiles. Starting with what? With light, I say, the kind I don't need permission to stand in. That afternoon, as golden sunlight spills across my work table, I open my notebook again. Yesterday's 3 promises. Stop shrinking. Tell the truth about the light. Refuse to disappear. Still stare back at me. But now, beneath them, I add a 4th. Take back the narrative. I start a list. Small weddings I've dreamed of photographing, but never dared pitch because I was too busy staying humble. Cliffside vows at dusk, a ceremony in fog, a rooftop elopement in the rain. Then I add one more, Amalfi Coast, our own. Ethan walks in halfway through, glances at the page, and grins. So it's decided? It's a possibility, I say, smiling for real. He sits beside me. For what it's worth, I think the world deserves to see you in your own light. Maybe I deserve to see it first, I whisper. That night, I dream of the sea, a blue horizon folding into gold. Somewhere in the distance, I hear a camera shutter click, soft as breath. When I wake, I know what the next step is. Not to confront them, not yet. To reclaim my story, one frame at a time. The decision began not as rebellion, but as quiet oxygen. 3 days after I found myself surrounded by old photographs, Ethan suggested we leave the city, just a weekend trip, somewhere without Wi-Fi or reminders of family. I said yes before realizing how much I needed to say it. We drove east, through rain, until the highway turned into winding lake roads. The world outside our windshield softened into shades of gray-blue and pine. By the time we reached the cabin, the air smelled of wood smoke and thawing earth. Ethan lit a fire. I made coffee. We didn't talk about my parents. We talked about light, how it moves, how it hides, how it forgives everything but lies. Do you ever think about photographing yourself? He asked, staring at the flames. I laughed. Self-portraits feel like vanity. He smiled, or honesty. The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was space. Outside, the lake shifted under the wind, silver and restless. I reached for my camera without thinking and started shooting. The ripples, the reflection of the fire in the window, Ethan's profile against the amber glow. The photos looked nothing like my wedding work. They were imperfect, real. That night, we sat on the deck wrapped in blankets. He opened his laptop and pulled up an email from Giovanni, the Italian director we'd met years ago. The subject line read, "A favor for friends." Remember Giovanni's villa? Ethan said, showing me a photo. Stone terraces, ivy climbing ancient walls, the Mediterranean stretching infinite and blue. I stared. It doesn't look real. He rents it for small weddings, just 25 guests. He glanced at me, testing. We could go. No grand production. Just us. No audience. I set down my mug. Ethan, I'm serious, he said. You've built a career capturing everyone else's best day. Maybe it's time you had yours. The words hit like a match. I wanted to believe them, but guilt still hummed beneath my ribs. Mom would say I'm trying to upstage Lily. He shrugged. Then let her. You're not competing, you're living. I looked back at the image on his screen, the villa glowing gold against the sea, and felt something inside me tilt toward freedom. Still, I needed to test the edges of the idea, the way I test light before a shot. What if they find out? He met my eyes. Then they'll finally have to see you, and maybe that's the point. I laughed, half in disbelief. You're proposing we plan a wedding just to reclaim my existence? I'm proposing, he said softly, that we stop asking permission to exist. The fire cracked. The lake caught the reflection of stars. For once, I didn't feel like background noise. Back in Seattle, the idea refused to fade. It followed me through editing sessions, through client meetings, through the hum of city traffic. Every time I lifted my camera, I saw the villa in my mind, its terraces, its light, its quiet defiance. Finally, one morning, I opened my laptop and typed Amalfi Coast wedding venues. Giovanni's villa was the first result. I clicked inquire. The reply came within hours. Cara Julia, it would be my honor. The light here in September is divine. If you wish, I can reserve the villa personally. Giovanni. I stared at the message until my hands trembled. Ethan came home that evening to find me pacing. He said yes, I blurted out. To what? To everything. I handed him my laptop. The villa, September 15th. He read, then looked up slowly. That's 1 month before Lily's wedding. I know. A grin spread across his face. Poetic. Risky. Perfect, he countered. The next morning, I called my mother. My heart drummed like a countdown. Julia, she answered, already suspicious. What's wrong? Nothing, I said, keeping my voice light. Actually, something good. Ethan and I are getting married. Silence, then.
What?
We found a place in Amalfi. Just 25 people. Intimate, simple. It feels right. You can't be serious. Her voice sharpened. Do you have any idea how hard Lily is working on her wedding? This will devastate her. I closed my eyes. I'm not asking permission, Mom. I'm just letting you know. This is exactly what I mean about you always needing attention, she snapped. First, you make a fuss about not being invited. Now this? This isn't about attention, I said quietly. It's about peace. Peace? She scoffed. At your sister's expense? Her happiness isn't dependent on my silence. Richard, she shouted away from the phone. Your daughter is trying to ruin Lily's day. I could hear footsteps, the shuffle of the speaker being activated. My father's voice joined hers. Julia, sweetheart, maybe wait until after Lily's wedding. No, I said. I've been waiting my whole life. I ended the call before I lost my nerve. For a moment, the silence in my apartment was deafening. Then it broke into something else. Clarity. I sent Giovanni the deposit that night. As the payment confirmed, I wrote in my notebook, our wedding isn't a reaction, it's a reclamation. Then, for the first time in years, I slept without dreams. The following week, I met Ethan at a cafe downtown. Rain streaked the windows, city lights blurring into watercolor. He slid into the booth, dripping from his umbrella. So, are we really doing this? We are. He exhaled, laughing. Do you think your parents will ever forgive us? Probably not. He raised his coffee cup. To unforgivable joy. I clinked mine against his. To light. That night, I sat alone in my studio, scrolling through my camera roll. Every photograph told someone else's love story, strangers captured in perfect timing, perfect angles, but none of them were mine. Until now. I opened a new folder on my computer and named it Amalfi. Empty, for now, but not for long. I imagined the shot I'd take, the horizon split by gold, two silhouettes against the endless sea. A frame not built for perfection, but truth. For the first time, I could picture myself inside the photograph, centered, unafraid, exactly where I belonged. And somewhere deep down I knew this wouldn't just be a wedding. It would be proof. The weeks that followed moved with an odd rhythm, half chaos, half calm. Every morning I woke to the same thought. This is really happening. The Amalfi Villa felt both impossibly distant and suddenly tangible. Giovanni sent over a dozen photos of the terrace at different hours of the day. Dawn in rose light, noon in silver, sunset drowning the stones in honey. Each image hummed with the one thing I'd been chasing for years, authenticity. Ethan and I transformed our apartment into a command center. The dining table disappeared under inspiration boards, swatches of linen, pressed olive leaves, sketches of lighting rigs for golden hour. I pinned a single word at the center of it all. Real. It wasn't revenge I wanted anymore, it was truth. One afternoon, Giovanni called. His voice carried that musical Italian lilt that made even bad news sound like poetry. Signora Giulia, he began, a woman phoned this morning, asking about the ceremony details. My stomach tightened. What did she say? She said she was your mother. I closed my eyes. And? I told her nothing, Giovanni said firmly. I have already informed the staff. No inquiries without your permission. Relief washed over me, but it left a faint aftertaste of dread. Thank you, Giovanni. He chuckled softly. Every family has a drama, see? But your day will be yours alone. When the call ended, I sat for a long time, staring at the swatches pinned to the board. My family was still trying to script my story. They just hadn't realized I'd stopped auditioning. 2 days later, Ethan burst through the door, rain in his hair and excitement in his eyes. Guess what arrived? He held up a thick envelope, the Italian marriage registration papers. They need the notarized affidavit 6 weeks before the ceremony, he said, flipping through the pages. We're already on a tight clock. I laughed, despite the pressure. So basically tomorrow. Exactly. We spent the evening filling out forms by candlelight, our kitchen table a battlefield of pens, stamps, and half-drunk coffee. I found myself grinning as Ethan triple-checked every signature. This feels weirdly thrilling, I said. Paperwork, he teased. Freedom, I replied. It has a lot of boxes to tick. He leaned over, kissed my cheek, and whispered, worth it. That weekend, I opened my notebook and wrote a new heading, the foundation. Below it, I listed ideas I'd been too afraid to speak aloud. Create a fund for young photographers from unsupportive families. Offer mentorships on capturing truth over perfection. Call it love without permission. Ethan read over my shoulder. You're really doing this? I nodded. If they spent years telling me my light was too much, I want to help others find theirs. He smiled. You're turning pain into architecture. By the following Monday, the living room walls had become a gallery of timelines and post-it notes. The color-coded chaos made sense only to me. Peach for travel logistics, blue for creative details, green for emotional sanity. When Ethan returned from a filming job, he found me in the middle of it all, camera in hand, photographing the arrangement itself. What are you doing? He laughed. Documenting the process, I said. If I can capture other people's beginnings, I should capture ours. He looked at the wall of notes, then at me. You realize you're treating our wedding like your biggest project. Isn't it? He tilted his head. Just make sure you live the story too. That sentence landed softly but stayed. That night, I sat by the window editing old wedding photos. Brides mid-laughter, grooms crying softly, grandparents clasping hands. I tried to understand what made each image timeless. It wasn't the flowers or the decor. It was the truth no one rehearsed. When I closed the laptop, I knew what I wanted. A ceremony with no performance, no staged moments. Just us, documented as we really are. I wrote to Giovanni again. We'd like to avoid traditional staging. No first dance, no cake cutting, just documentary-style coverage. Real moments only. His reply arrived within an hour. Perfecto. Truth is always more cinematic. A week later, an email pinged from my cousin Amanda. The subject line made my stomach drop. Family group chat, FYI. I hesitated before opening it. Inside was a screenshot of a conversation between my mother, 2 aunts, and, of course, Lily. Mom, she's planning something in Italy. It's cruel. Aunt Carol, so selfish. Lily, I just wish she'd waited. Aunt Pam, typical Julia, always dramatic. Amanda's note beneath it was simple. You don't owe them anything. Live your story. I sat for a long time, rereading Lily's line. I just wish she'd waited. It didn't sound angry. It sounded tired. Maybe, I thought, she's just as trapped as I was. That evening, Ethan and I had dinner at a small Italian restaurant near Pike Place Market. The smell of garlic and rain soaked through the air. So, he said between bites of pasta, what about vows? I smirked. You're asking a writer to summarize love in under 2 minutes? Exactly. I considered it. I don't want promises about forever. I want promises about truth. He nodded slowly. I'll match you. We clinked our wine glasses together. To truth, he said. To light, I added. Later that night, while sorting camera gear, I found a voice memo on my phone titled, Untitled Project 7. I pressed play. My own voice filled the room, recorded months earlier after a shoot. Note to self, someday, capture what freedom looks like. I smiled. Maybe that was what this whole journey had become, an assignment I'd given myself without knowing it. A few days later, Giovanni sent new photos of the terrace. In one of them, vines framed the horizon in a perfect arch. Beneath it, a couple from another ceremony stood hand in hand, faces blurred by sunlight. The caption read, The light always tells the truth, Julia. I pinned the photo above my desk. Ethan walked in, wiping his hands on a towel. You're staring like it's the Mona Lisa. It might as well be, I said. That's the light I've been chasing. He stepped closer, and now it's chasing you. I smiled, turning to him. Let's make sure it catches us. That night, I lay in bed and unable to sleep, the faint hum of the city mixing with the sea in my imagination. I saw every detail: the jasmine vines, the sound of waves, the quiet murmur of friends who loved us without condition. For the first time, the thought of standing in the center didn't feel terrifying. It felt right. I reached for my notebook and added one final line under the foundation. Build something that outlives the noise. Then I turned off the light. In the dark, Ethan murmured, half asleep, "You okay?" "Better than okay," I whispered. "I think I finally know where I'm standing." The attack didn't come all at once. It crept in like bad weather. First, a text from Aunt Carol. "Sweetheart, your mother's worried sick. Maybe postpone your trip?" Then a voicemail from my cousin Rachel. "We all love you, but this Italy thing is insensitive." By the end of the week, my inbox was a graveyard of concern disguised as guilt. Ethan found me sitting on the floor, surrounded by my laptop, coffee cup, and too many notifications to count. He skimmed the screen, jaw tightening. "They've mobilized." I laughed, the sound sharp enough to hurt. "Of course they have. Why settle for one guilt trip when you can book a family tour?" He sat beside me, took the phone gently from my hands, and set it aside. "They can't reach you if you don't pick up." "I know," I said, "but they'll just find another way." He studied my face. "Do you want to stop?" I met his gaze. "Do you?" He didn't answer. He didn't need to. That night, my phone lit up again. "Mom." I should have let it ring, but something in me needed to hear it. I pressed accept. Her voice was steady, surgical. "You need to cancel this wedding." I exhaled slowly. "Good evening to you, too. Don't be flippant. You're humiliating this family." "By getting married?" "By doing it before your sister's wedding," she snapped. "You're deliberately overshadowing her." "I'm not overshadowing, Mom. I'm existing." A pause. Then my father's voice joined. Speakerphone. "Julia, honey, listen. Lily's been unwell. She's having panic attacks because of this." I blinked. "Panic attacks?" "She's under tremendous pressure," he said quickly. "This is pushing her over the edge." Something cold settled in my stomach. "Is she okay?" Margaret sighed dramatically. "Her doctor says the stress could affect her long-term health." I almost believed it until I remembered the photos Lily had posted that very morning. A bachelorette yacht party in the Bahamas. Smiling, tan, champagne in hand. "Her anxiety must have great Wi-Fi," I murmured. "What?" "Nothing," I said. "I'm glad she's enjoying herself." "You're mocking her." "No," I said evenly. "I'm just done accepting stories that aren't true." "Julia," my father tried again, voice weary. "Your grandmother's heart can't take this. She's devastated she won't be there." "Grandma hasn't left Florida in 15 years," I replied. "Still," he said softly, "she's hurt." I closed my eyes. "You taught me to value truth, Dad. Where's that man now?" Silence, then, "It's complicated." "No," I said, "it's convenient." Margaret's voice cut back in, brittle and bright. "Cancel the wedding, or don't expect to be welcome home again." The old me would have begged. The new me said nothing. I ended the call. For 10 whole minutes, I stared at the wall, the post-it notes, the sketches, the light maps. All the things we'd built together suddenly looked fragile, like they might crumble under their disapproval. Then I heard Ethan's footsteps behind me. He didn't speak. He just wrapped his arms around me until the shaking stopped. "They're lying," I whispered. "About Lily, about Grandma, all of it." "I know. What kind of people weaponize love like that?" "The kind who fear losing control," he said quietly. I turned in his arms, looking up at him. "Then let's make sure they lose it." He smiled, not cruelly, just resolutely. Agreed. We spent the next morning reinforcing every boundary we could think of. Giovanni promised to enforce privacy. Our 25 guests were briefed about potential family interference. Ethan even contacted a local security consultant through a friend of a friend, just in case. It felt absurd, over the top, but necessary. Still, the messages kept coming. "You're being cruel. You'll regret this. Think of your sister." I muted them all. Then one night, just after midnight, the phone rang again. This time it was Lily. I hesitated, then answered. "Hey." Her voice was fragile. "Did Mom call you?" "She did." A pause. "I didn't ask her to." I waited. She continued, voice trembling. "I wanted to ask if it's beautiful." I blinked. "What?" "The place in Italy." I softened. "It's beyond beautiful. The sea glows gold at sunset. You'd love it." She exhaled a shaky laugh. "Of course it's perfect. Everything you touch turns cinematic." "Lily, I'm not mad," she interrupted. "I'm just tired. My wedding feels like a production I didn't sign up for. 230 guests, sponsors, photographers, I don't even know. Bradley's parents are running half of it. I don't even remember what I wanted anymore. Her voice cracked. Part of me wishes I were having yours. For the first time, my anger faltered. It's not too late to change it. You know, Mom, she said softly. She'd never forgive me. Mom's forgiveness comes with strings, I replied. Maybe it's time we stop pretending it's love. Silence. Then she whispered, You sound free. I didn't know what to say. I should go, she said after a beat. Bradley's waiting. Just take good pictures, okay? The line went dead. I sat there in the dark for a long time, the phone still in my hand. For years I'd seen Lily as the favorite, the chosen one. But now, for the first time, I saw her clearly. Not favored, controlled. Maybe we were both trapped, just in different cages. I whispered into the quiet, I hope someday you walk out too. The next morning, Ethan and I stood in the airport terminal with 2 suitcases and a single carry-on holding our cameras. Our flight to Naples was boarding. He looked at me over his ticket. Last chance to back out. I smiled. No turning back. We walked down the jet bridge side by side. The hum of engines filled the air, steady and alive. As the plane lifted off, Seattle fell away beneath the clouds. I opened my notebook, tracing my old vows to myself. Stop shrinking. Tell the truth about the light. Refuse to disappear. A 4th vow waited beneath them now. Forgive nothing that asks you to be smaller. I looked out the window, at the golden horizon ahead. Somewhere beyond those clouds, the Amalfi Coast was waiting. Its cliffs, its light, its freedom. And this time, I wasn't going to photograph it from behind the lens. This time, I'd be in the frame. The first thing I noticed when we landed in Italy was the light. It wasn't polite or filtered like Seattle's. It was alive. It didn't fall on things. It wrapped them. Every cobblestone, every vine, every piece of sea glass shimmered, as though the world had been dipped in gold. Welcome home, Ethan murmured, taking my hand as we stepped onto the tarmac. Home. The word didn't sting anymore. It fit, strangely, perfectly. Giovanni met us at the airport, his linen shirt flapping like a sail in the coastal wind. He was older now, but his eyes still carried that familiar spark of mischief, the kind that makes you trust he'll turn chaos into beauty. Julia, he exclaimed, kissing both my cheeks. You are thinner than I remember, but more powerful, yes? The light, it obeys you now. I laughed, startled by the warmth. I hope it listens to me at least once this week. He grinned. Here, light has no choice. We followed him through narrow roads that twisted along cliff sides. Every turn revealed another impossible view. The sea stretching forever, dotted with white boats like punctuation marks on blue silk. When the villa came into sight, I stopped breathing. It sat high above the coast, carved from old stone and history. Jasmine vines climbed its walls, and olive branches bowed over the terrace where we'd exchange vows. The air smelled like salt and wildflowers. Ethan reached for my hand. Worth the flight? I nodded, unable to speak. Giovanni unlocked the great wooden doors, revealing a courtyard awash in sunlight. I promised you perfection, he said proudly, and privacy. That word, privacy, carried its own gravity. He wasn't exaggerating. The staff had been briefed, the gates guarded, and our guest list sealed. No one wanted phone calls, no concerned relatives, no disruptions. For the first time in my life, the world around me reflected the peace I'd been fighting for. Over the next few days, the villa transformed into a living canvas. Vanessa and James, 2 of my closest photographer friends, arrived early to scout angles with me. We wandered the terraces barefoot at sunset, watching the light crawl across the walls. Every shadow had purpose. Every glint told a story. Golden hour here doesn't just happen, James said, raising his camera. It performs. I smiled. Then we'll capture it live. Ethan joined us, camera slung over his shoulder but unused. For once, he said, I think I just want to be present. You sure? I teased. You, the documentarian? He shrugged. You've spent your whole life behind the lens. Maybe we both deserve to exist in front of it. That word, exist, hit deeper than it should have. That evening, after dinner on the terrace, Giovanni joined us for espresso. Your mother called again, he said casually, stirring sugar into his cup. I froze. What did she want? To confirm accommodations. His smile was kind but sharp. I told her we were fully booked, which is true. I sighed. She won't stop. She will, Giovanni said, tapping his spoon, because people who live on control cannot survive where beauty needs chaos. He gestured toward the horizon, where the last slice of sun was melting into the sea. You chose this light. Do not dim it now. I nodded slowly, feeling the words etch themselves somewhere beneath my ribs. That night, I couldn't sleep. I wandered out onto the balcony, the sea humming below. The air tasted of salt and promise. I thought about my mother's ultimatum, about Lily's small confession of envy. It would be so easy to call them, to reach for a truce. But what kind of peace required me to disappear? Ethan joined me quietly, wrapping a blanket around my shoulders. Can't sleep? Too much noise in my head. He leaned against the railing beside me. You're thinking about them. I didn't deny it. Do you ever wonder if I'm doing the wrong thing? He studied me, his expression soft but unflinching. The wrong thing doesn't make you breathe easier, Julia. This does. I glanced down at our intertwined hands, glowing faintly in moonlight. They said I was selfish. You're not selfish, he said simply. You're finally alive. The wind lifted the jasmine vines beside us, their petals brushing my arm like tiny affirmations. Tomorrow, I whispered, we'll walk the terrace. Just us. No cameras, no plans. He smiled, a rehearsal for freedom. The next day, we did exactly that. We stood barefoot on the terrace at sunset, facing each other while the Mediterranean burned gold behind us. Pretend this is it, Ethan said softly. I don't need to pretend. We didn't speak our vows. We just looked at each other until words became unnecessary. The air around us thickened with something beyond language, recognition, release, belonging. When the first star appeared, I raised my hand and caught it through the viewfinder, framing us both against the sea. One test shot, I whispered. Ethan laughed. Of course you couldn't resist. I clicked the shutter. The sound was small, but it echoed like a heartbeat. Later, as I reviewed the photo, I saw what I hadn't realized in the moment. My own reflection, faintly visible in the glass, standing beside him, centered in the frame. Not behind the camera, not hidden, present. That night, over wine and candlelight, I received a text from an unknown number. I heard you're getting married in Amalfi. Don't forget who made you. I didn't need to ask who it was. Ethan saw my expression and reached across the table, taking my phone. Without reading further, he deleted the message. You can't let them write the ending, he said. They already tried, I replied and smiled faintly. I rewrote it. 2 days before the ceremony, our guests began arriving. Friends, colleagues, clients who'd become family. The courtyard filled with laughter, music, and the clinking of wine glasses. It wasn't the noisy, performative joy of my parents' gatherings. This was quieter, real. Vanessa hugged me tight. You look lighter, she said. I am. Giovanni appeared from the kitchen holding 2 flutes of Prosecco. Tomorrow, the light will be perfect. I checked the forecast myself. No clouds, no interruptions. Just us, I said. He nodded. Just you and your truth. That evening, the villa glowed under strings of lanterns. I watched our guests dance barefoot on the terrace, faces illuminated by candlelight. My phone buzzed again. Lily. Her message was short. I hope it's everything you dreamed. I stared at it for a long time, then typed back. It already is. I didn't send it. I didn't need to. I powered off my phone, slipped it into a drawer, and turned to Ethan, who was watching me with that knowing half smile. Ready for tomorrow? He asked. I nodded. More than ready. He brushed a lock of hair from my face, then sleep. Tomorrow we stop surviving and start living. As I lay in bed, the sea murmured below, a sound older than judgment. In the dark, I whispered to myself, half prayer, half promise. No more shrinking, no more shadows. Outside, the horizon shimmered like a waiting lens. Tomorrow, I'd step into the light and stay there. The morning of our wedding broke in a wash of white light and jasmine. I woke before sunrise, the air cool and still, the sea murmuring below like a heartbeat I could finally hear. For a moment, I didn't move. I just breathed. The world felt balanced. No noise from my family, no guilt dragging at my ribs. Only the rustle of vines outside the window and the steady rhythm of Ethan's breathing beside me. When I turned, he was already awake, watching me. Can't sleep either? I whispered. He smiled. It's hard to sleep when the rest of your life starts in 3 hours. The villa came alive slowly. Giovanni moved like a conductor, orchestrating beauty without hurry. Musicians tuned guitars on the terrace. Photographers tested exposure in the golden light. The air smelled of espresso and sea salt. Vanessa handed me my dress, a simple silk slip that caught light like water. No sequins, no train, no excess. Just truth. She grinned. You ready to break the internet? I laughed softly. I'm ready to break a pattern. She studied me for a moment, then nodded. You already have. When I stepped onto the terrace, the world seemed to pause. The Mediterranean stretched before me in shades of blue that looked painted by mercy. 25 people turned to watch, but it didn't feel like performance. It felt like presence. No one gave me away. I walked myself, each step steady, each breath its own kind of vow. Ethan stood at the arch of jasmine and olive branches, light spilling over his shoulders like grace. His eyes found mine and stayed there. Giovanni whispered to the photographers, "Now, the light. She is perfect." The ceremony began. The officiant's words floated through the air, soft as the waves below. "Marriage is not the joining of halves," he said. "It is the meeting of two complete souls who choose to witness each other's becoming." Ethan went first. His voice was low, unwavering. "I promise to see you, not through the camera, not through anyone else's lens, but with my whole self. I promise never to ask you to be smaller, even when your light blinds me." My eyes burned. Then it was my turn. I unfolded my paper, hands shaking, not from fear, but from the weight of everything that had led me here. "I promise," I began, "to create beauty without apology, to tell the truth about the light, even when it's harsh, to stand tall beside you, never behind." The crowd blurred. The sound of the sea grew louder, like applause from something ancient. When the officiant said, "You may kiss," the sun dipped lower, striking the terrace in a beam, so golden it looked unreal. James dropped to one knee. Vanessa crouched at the opposite angle, two artists capturing one truth. Click! That sound again, small, certain, final. In that single shudder, I felt years of invisibility evaporate. The applause that followed wasn't polite, it was joyful. Friends clapped, laughed, shouted. Giovanni wiped his eyes. "Bellissima," he murmured. "You have captured the impossible, yourself." Dinner unfolded under lanterns strung like constellations. There was no head table, no seating chart. Everyone simply belonged. Ethan raised a glass. "To choosing our own stories," he said. "To refusing to disappear," I added. Glasses clinked. Laughter rippled. Somewhere between courses, I noticed James whispering excitedly to Vanessa, both of them staring at the back of his camera. He crossed the terrace to me, eyes wide. "You need to see this." He turned the display around. It was the shot. Ethan and I in profile, our joined hands catching the last arc of sunlight. Jasmine vines framed us like brushstrokes, and the Mediterranean burned behind us in molten gold. I felt my throat tighten. "It looks like freedom," James finished softly. Vanessa appeared beside him. "It's the best thing I've ever seen through a lens. It's not posed, it's alive." Ethan leaned over my shoulder, smiling. "It's you." The thought hit me with quiet force. I had spent my entire career searching for other people's truth. Somehow, this was mine. Later, Giovanni rose for a toast. His accent deepened with emotion. "In 40 years, I have seen many American weddings," he began, drawing laughter. "Always with drama, always someone shouting. But this," he gestured toward the terrace, the sea, the people. "This is courage, to tell your own story when others want to write it for you." His words landed heavier than I expected. I caught Ethan's hand beneath the table and squeezed. This wasn't revenge, it was reclamation. As twilight deepened, Vanessa posted the golden hour photo to her portfolio. Within minutes, her phone began buzzing. "Already 100 likes," she said, laughing. "Wait, 500. Julia, it's blowing up." I shrugged, dazed, sipping champagne. "It's just a photo." Ethan smiled knowingly. "You keep saying that like it's true." I leaned my head on his shoulder. "If people see beauty in it, maybe it's because for once it wasn't staged." He kissed the top of my head. "That's what scares them the most, that your truth doesn't need their approval." Hours later, after our guests drifted inside, I returned alone to the terrace. The candles had burned low, the sea murmuring beneath me. I stared at the spot where we'd stood, the air still carrying jasmine and salt. My phone buzzed once more, an unknown number, likely a cousin, maybe my mother, maybe both. I didn't look. Instead, I lifted my camera, took one last photo of the empty arch glowing in moonlight, and whispered to no one in particular, "You tried to make me small, and I learned how to grow light." Behind me, Ethan's voice was soft. "Talking to ghosts?" "Letting them know they can rest," I said. He smiled, slipped his arm around my waist. "Then come to bed, Mrs. Vale." The words settled warm and right. As we walked back through the villa, laughter and music trailed faintly behind us, blending with the sound of the waves below. The day had ended, but the story had only just begun. And somewhere across the ocean, my family would wake to a photograph they could never rewrite. Morning found me in the stillness after wonder. The villa was quiet except for the hum of bees and the jasmine and the rhythmic crash of waves below. Ethan still slept, one arm thrown across the pillow, the soft remnants of candlelight clinging to his skin. I padded barefoot to the terrace, clutching a cup of coffee, still unsure if yesterday had been real. The arch where we'd said our vows stood empty now, petals scattered across the stones like punctuation marks of joy. The sunlight hit the sea, and I swear it winked back. Then my phone began to buzz. First one notification, then 5, then a flood. Messages, mentions, tags. Vanessa's photo, the one James captured at golden hour, had exploded overnight. "Ethan!" I called, half laughing, half breathless. "You need to see this." He stumbled out, rubbing his eyes. "What is it?" "Vanessa's post. It's everywhere." I turned the screen toward him. The image filled the display. Our hands joined, the light haloing us. The sea turned to gold. The caption read, "Some weddings don't need direction. They direct you." The likes were in the hundreds of thousands. Comments scrolled endlessly. "The most authentic wedding photo I've ever seen. Who is this photographer? I can feel the love in this shot. This belongs in a museum." Even industry giants had begun to share it. One tag stopped me cold. Helena Baxter, the Helena Baxter, the award-winning photographer whose book had inspired me to pursue this career. Her comment read, "When art tells the truth, it changes everything." Ethan laughed, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "Looks like you broke the internet." I leaned back against him, still stunned. "I didn't even try to." "That's why it worked," he said. "You didn't pose for anyone this time." By noon, the story had spread far beyond social media. The Italian tourism board reposted the photo with the caption, "The wedding of the year, love and light on the Amalfi Coast." Wedding blogs requested interviews. Magazines wanted exclusive rights. Vanessa and James were ecstatic. "Your inbox is going to melt," Vanessa texted. She wasn't wrong. By afternoon, I'd received 30 emails from editors and clients, some offering collaborations, others begging to know who took our photos. I replied to only one, Giovanni's. "Cara Julia," he wrote, "your wedding has brought us fame, but more importantly, it brought truth. People see love when it is real. You have reminded them of." His words hit deeper than any headline could, but the fame wasn't the only thing that traveled across the ocean. By evening, new messages arrived, from numbers I recognized all too well. "Mom, you've embarrassed us all. The entire family is talking about your spectacle." "Dad, you've made your point. Please stop posting." Aunt Carol, "Your grandmother's been asking why you didn't invite her. Shameful." And, inevitably, Lily, "It's beautiful, truly. I can't stop looking at it." I stared at that last message for a long time. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't envious. It was something worse, honest. I typed a reply, then deleted it. Typed again. Deleted again. Finally, I wrote, "You can still choose your own story, Lil. It's never too late." Then I set the phone face down and walked outside. At sunset, we sat with Giovanni and the crew on the terrace, sipping wine. Vanessa was still buzzing about the numbers. "You don't get it," she said. "This photo isn't viral because it's pretty. It's viral because it feels real. People are tired of perfect. You gave them something human." Ethan smiled at me across the table, and it only took a lifetime of learning not to hide. I laughed softly. Guess I had to break before I could frame it. The next week blurred into a dream. By the time we flew home to Seattle, the golden hour image had crossed every platform imaginable. It had been featured in Vogue Weddings, Harper's Bazaar, and National Geographic Online under the title, "The Light That Changed Everything." At the airport, a stranger stopped me at security. "Are you the Amalfi bride?" she asked, eyes wide. That photo, God, it made me cry. For a moment, I didn't know how to respond. "Yes," I said finally, "that was me." And for the first time, saying it felt like freedom, not guilt. Back home, I expected the silence from my family to swallow me again. But silence didn't scare me anymore. Instead, the world filled with new sounds. Camera shutters, laughter, clients who called my work alive. A producer from a documentary company reached out. "We want to follow your process," yes, she said. "Not the weddings themselves, you. How you capture truth. How you changed what wedding photography means." She referenced the voice memos I'd recorded during our planning. Giovanni had forwarded them to her, believing they were art waiting for a home. The project would be called Frames of Truth. Ethan squeezed my hand as I read the email. "So the world's finally catching up to you." "Feels strange," I admitted. "I never wanted fame." He smiled. "Then you'll handle it just fine." That night, my phone buzzed again. Lily, another message. I watched the interviews. You looked happy. Yours looked more like you than mine looked like me. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to prove, no forgiveness left to beg for. But for the first time, I hoped she'd find her own light too. 2 months later, my photo hung in a gallery downtown. Golden Hour, a study in becoming. Critics called it the image that redefined authenticity. Standing there among strangers, hearing their awe, I realized something quietly profound. Their admiration didn't fill the space my family left behind. It simply existed beside it, peacefully. Giovanni called that evening. The foundation paperwork is ready, he said. Love without permission. Are you certain about the name? I smiled, completely. He chuckled. Then it will outlive even the photograph. The night ended on our balcony, city lights stretching like constellations below. Ethan leaned against the railing. Do you miss them? I thought about it. Sometimes, but I don't miss who I had to be with them. He nodded. That's growth. No, I corrected softly. That's truth. We stood there in silence, the cool air wrapping around us. I looked up at the stars and thought about Giovanni's words. People who live on control cannot survive where beauty needs chaos. The world below still spun with noise, posts, shares, opinions, but none of it mattered. Because I'd already learned the secret hidden in every photograph I'd ever taken. The frame doesn't define the subject defines the frame. And for the first time, I was no longer cropped out of my own life. 6 months after Amalfi, the photograph still traveled farther than I could. It lived on screens, in magazines, in strangers' saved folders tagged, someday. But in our apartment, it hung quietly above my desk, framed in olive wood Giovanni had sent from Italy, the sea frozen in eternal gold. Most mornings I sat beneath it, editing new work. The clients who reached out now were different, less influencers, more humans. They didn't ask for curated poses or choreographed joy. They asked for truth. That was the shift. The world was beginning to crave honesty again. By late winter, the foundation had taken shape. Love Without Permission launched as a small grant program for photographers facing family or cultural pressure to give up their art. Giovanni became our first benefactor, wiring funds with a note that read, "For the dreamers whose light scares small minds." The first recipient, a 19-year-old named Matteo from Argentina, sent me a portfolio of raw, grainy images of his parents' grocery store. Ordinary moments turned holy. His message ended with, "I thought I was the only one told to shrink." I cried reading it. Then I wired his grant personally. Ethan found me at my desk, cheeks wet. "Happy tears?" I nodded. He reminds me of me. He kissed my forehead. "Then you're doing it right." In March, a letter arrived in unfamiliar handwriting. No return address, just my name. Inside was a single sheet. I saw the photo in Vogue. I told Mom it was beautiful. She said it was manipulative. I said maybe both can be true. Love, Lily. No apology, no defense, just honesty. I read it twice, then folded it back into the envelope. It didn't feel like reconciliation. It felt like recognition. And maybe that was enough. Spring brought invitations I never expected. Keynotes, gallery exhibitions, brand collaborations. One of them came from Helena Baxter. "Your work cracked the mirror," she wrote. "I want you to co-curate a series on authenticity in modern photography." I nearly dropped my phone. When I told Ethan, he laughed. "Full circle, huh? The woman who taught you to find truth wants to learn from you." I smiled. Guess light travels both ways. The first workshop for Love Without Permission filled faster than we could handle. We held it in a reclaimed warehouse downtown. Concrete walls, string lights, the kind of imperfect space that forces people to look at each other instead of their surroundings. 20 young photographers arrived, with cameras older than ambition. Their stories spilled out in nervous laughter, in confessions about parents who called art a phase, about partners who mocked their dreams. I opened the session the only way I knew how. I spent years trying to be palatable. You know what that gets you? Cropped out of your own pictures. So if you learn nothing else from me, learn this. Your light doesn't need permission to exist. Silence followed, then applause that sounded like release. Afterward, a young woman lingered behind. Her name was Jessica, 22, trembling hands clutching a portfolio. "My parents think photography is a hobby," she said quietly. "They want me to finish accounting school." I flipped through her prints. Rain-soaked weddings, old couples dancing, eyes shining in grainy film. They were stunning. Jessica, I said, meeting her gaze, your camera doesn't ask for a degree, it asks for truth. She blinked back tears. What if they never forgive me? I smiled sadly. Then you'll be free sooner than I was. Later that week, I received another message from Lily. Bradley and I separated. Turns out I didn't know what I wanted. I think I envied how sure you were. I didn't reply immediately. I walked to the studio, turned on soft music, and stared at the Amalfi photograph. She had spent her life performing perfection, the same way I spent mine chasing permission. We were reflections of each other, just different distortions of the same mirror. So I wrote back carefully. Being sure didn't come easy. It came from breaking first. I hope you give yourself permission to start over. She replied an hour later. I'm trying. Maybe someday we can talk without history in the room. I smiled. Maybe we already are, I whispered. By summer, the Foundation's second grant cycle was underway, and Giovanni insisted we host the recipients at his villa. So we returned to Amalfi. The moment the terrace came into view, I felt that same warmth crawl through my chest, the scent of jasmine, the endless blue horizon, the ghost of vows still lingering in the air. Giovanni greeted us with open arms. Ah, my favorite rebels. Ethan laughed. You created a monster, Giovanni. Good, he said. The world needs more monsters of truth. The students arrived, cameras in hand, and I watched them scatter across the terrace like light breaking through clouds. One girl gasped, This is where you stood. Tss. I smiled. Yes, but today it's yours. She looked through her viewfinder, adjusting the angle. It's perfect. I shook my head. It's real, that's better. That evening, as the sun bled into the sea, I found a quiet moment alone on the balcony. Ethan joined me, his arm brushing mine. You've changed things, he said softly. Maybe, I said. Or maybe I just reminded people what they already knew. He looked out at the horizon. Either way, you reframe the world. I laughed. Not the world, just my corner of it. We stood there, the waves below catching the last light, the villa humming with the laughter of new artists unafraid to exist. For the first time in years, the past didn't feel like a wound. It felt like compost, feeding something alive. I leaned against Ethan's shoulder and whispered, For once, the frame finally fits. He kissed my temple. That's because you built it. The sea answered in gold. And somewhere in Florida, maybe, my mother scrolled past another article about the Amalfi bride and didn't know whether to feel anger or awe. Either way, she was still looking. And I was no longer hiding. The night of the award ceremony shimmered with nerves and sequins. I could still smell developer fluid in my hair from an afternoon spent in the darkroom, a reminder that no matter how bright things had become, I'd started in shadow. Ethan adjusted my collar in the hotel mirror. You don't have to say yes to every honor, you know. I smiled faintly. I'm not here for them. I'm here for the girl who thought she'd never belong in a family photo. He kissed my cheek. Then let's give her a night she'll remember. The ballroom pulsed with camera flashes and polite applause. My photograph, golden hour, the light between, hung in monumental size at the center of the stage, glowing against the velvet backdrop. It was strange seeing it that way, a moment of intimacy turned into spectacle. Yet as the crowd murmured, I felt no panic, just calm. When they called my name, the room rose. The applause wasn't thunderous, but it was genuine. I walked toward the podium, the weight of every rejection and every shutter click behind me, and thought, this is what it means to arrive in your own frame. The presenter handed me the International Vision Award. It was heavy, absurdly shiny, and entirely real. Congratulations, Julia Vale, he said. Your work reminds us that the most powerful light is truth. The words caught somewhere between my throat and heart. Then I stepped to the microphone. The frames we choose, I began, voice steadier than I felt, decide which stories survive. The audience quieted. The air thickened. For years, I let other people frame me. Too loud, too ambitious, too much. I learned to crop myself to fit their comfort. But art has taught me something simple. Truth refuses to fit inside anyone else's borders. I saw faces lean forward, colleagues, strangers, a few who'd once called my work indulgent. When you are told to shrink, it's usually because your light exposes what others would rather keep hidden, I said, scanning the room. Don't apologize for shining. Authenticity isn't arrogance. It's the oxygen of art and of love. Applause began, hesitant at first, then rising, spreading like tidewater. In the back of the hall, beyond the stage lights, I caught a flicker of movement, someone standing in the shadows, hand near her mouth. For half a breath, I thought I imagined it, but when my eyes adjusted, I knew. My mother, Margaret Vale. Her expression was unreadable, somewhere between awe and confusion, as if she'd stumbled into a story she didn't write. She didn't wave, she didn't smile, but she didn't leave either. I didn't acknowledge her, not out of anger, out of peace. Some stories don't need confrontation, they just need witness. After the ceremony, reporters swarmed. I smiled for photos, gave quick answers, but my heart was already elsewhere. Outside, under a string of city lights, Ethan waited, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. "You were luminous," he said. "Fitting," I replied. "That's all I talked about." We clinked glasses. Somewhere above us, flashes went off again. But this time I didn't flinch. I looked straight into the light. Back in our apartment later that night, I changed into pajamas and padded barefoot to the studio. The Amalfi photograph glowed softly in the dim light. Our hands, the sea, the fire of dusk. Underneath it, pinned to the corkboard, was Lily's last message. "Maybe someday we can talk without history in the room." I whispered, "Maybe someday has already begun." I turned off my phone, let the silence swell, and sat down to write a new note in my journal. When people try to make you smaller, that's when you must stand tallest. A week later, the Love Without Permission Foundation hosted its first gallery showcase. The recipients' photographs lined the walls. Mateo's grocery store at dawn, Jessica's portrait of her grandmother laughing mid-tea, a dozen images of defiance rendered in light. Giovanni stood beside me, misty-eyed. "You built this," he whispered. "We built this," I corrected. He chuckled. "Ah, humility, the rarest art form." Across the room, a new artist approached shyly. "Miss Vale, I wanted to thank you. My parents came tonight. They saw my work for the first time." "Are they proud?" I asked. She smiled through tears. They didn't say the word, but they stayed until the end. Sometimes that's enough. Later, Ethan took the stage to introduce the final speaker, me. I walked up, surrounded by walls filled with other people's truths, and felt the universe narrow into one simple understanding. This is what light was always for, to be shared. I didn't have a prepared speech. I didn't need one. "All of us here," I said, looking around the room, "know what it means to live uninvited, to love what scares others, to keep creating anyway." I paused, letting the quiet hold us. When I was little, my mother told me I needed to be less. Now I tell every student who joins this foundation the opposite. Be the fullest version of yourself. Fill the frame. Take up space. Because someone out there needs to see what freedom looks like, and maybe it looks like you. The applause that followed felt like light breaking open. That night, long after the guests had gone, Ethan and I walked through the empty gallery. The photographs glowed under soft bulbs. I stopped at one, the Amalfi print, framed modestly at the far end. Ethan slipped his hand into mine. "Still proud of it?" "More proud of what came after." He smiled. "What comes next?" "Something new," I said. "Always something new." We stood there, 2 silhouettes against the brightness we'd built, our reflections layered over every image like ghosts made of light. Outside, the city buzzed quietly, alive and unashamed. I turned to him, the weight of years gone from my shoulders. "You know," I said softly, "I used to think light was something you had to chase." "And now?" "Now I know," I smiled. "You just have to stop running from it." He leaned down, kissed me slow, and for a moment, everything, the applause, the pain, the photographs, the gold horizon of Amalfi, folded into one truth. I had stepped into my frame. I had chosen my story. And I had finally, irrevocably, learned to stand tallest.